All right, today we're diving deep into a really chilling prophecy from Zechariah chapter 11. We're going to go verse by verse through some strange symbolic actions. Breaking shepherd staffs, a shocking payment of 30 silver pieces, and we'll see exactly how it predicted a nation's downfall centuries before it actually happened. Let's get right into it.
So here's how we're going to break this down. The prophecy basically unfolds in 5 acts. It all starts with a broken covenant, which then leads to the shocking rejection of a shepherd. From there, we'll see how that rejection causes the whole nation's unity to just shatter, and that opens the door for a corrupt new leader, and it all ends with a final, decisive judgment.
So let's get right into it. The prophecy kicks off with this incredibly dramatic, almost theatrical act. The prophet is told to do something that would have been completely unthinkable, to publicly cut off God's covenant of protection over his own people.
So you have the prophet acting out the role of a shepherd, and he does something shocking. He takes his staff, which is named Beauty, and just snaps it in two. Now, this isn't just a random act of frustration, it's a huge symbol. It represents the breaking of God's covenant, his solemn promise to protect them. And what's really important here, the text points out that the poor of the flock, the humble and the faithful, they knew exactly what this meant. They recognized it as the word of the Lord in action.
So what did this staff, Beauty, actually represent? Well, it wasn't just a stick. It was a symbol of God's favor, his care, and his protective shield that was all around the nation. So breaking it was this powerful, public declaration that divine protection was now officially gone.
Okay, so how did this actually play out in history? Well, this prophecy was fulfilled with just stunning accuracy in the events that led up to the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE. Once that divine protection was lifted, the nation wasn't just vulnerable to an outside enemy like Rome, it literally began to tear itself apart from the inside. And just like Zechariah predicted, the faithful few, they didn't see this as just some political accident. They recognized it as the hand of God at work.
But breaking the covenant, that was just the beginning. Next, the shepherd asks to be paid for his service, and the response he gets isn't just insulting, it's profoundly prophetic.
So the shepherd basically says, hey, if you think it's fair, give me my wages. And what was their valuation of his work? 30 pieces of silver. Then God sarcastically calls it a handsome price, and tells the prophet to throw it to the potter in the Lord's house. Believe me, every single detail here is absolutely packed with meaning.
30 pieces of silver. I mean, if you know your New Testament, that number just jumps right off the page, doesn't it? It's the exact price that Judas was paid to betray Jesus Christ. But you gotta ask, why that number specifically? Well, back in the law of Moses, 30 shekels of silver was the compensation price you paid if your ox gored and killed someone's slave. To offer this paltry sum for their divine shepherd was the ultimate insult. They were basically saying his protection and care were worth the price of a disposable servant.
And you can just feel the bitter irony in God's own words from the prophecy. This goodly price, this handsome price, this was how the nation valued their shepherd, and in doing so, they pretty much sealed their own fate.
This rejection of the true shepherd, it has an immediate knock-on effect. He's already broken the staff of divine protection, Beauty. So now the prophet picks up the second staff. So another staff gets broken, another symbolic act. This one's named Bands, which represents unity, and snapping it in two signifies the complete shattering of the brotherhood between the people of Judah and Israel.
So what was Bands all about? Well, you could call it union. It symbolized national cohesion. It was literally the glue holding the people together. To break it meant unleashing internal strife, factionalism, and basically civil war.
And this is where the prophecy becomes just incredibly precise. Historically, it hits 2 targets. First, it definitely echoes the original split of Israel's kingdom centuries before, but it also paints a perfect and grim picture of Jerusalem in the 1st century. When the Romans showed up, they didn't find a united city ready to defend itself. No, they found a people already at war with each other, bitterly and violently divided.
And we don't just have to guess about this. The historian Josephus, he was an eyewitness, and he gives this chilling account. During the Roman siege, the rival Jewish factions inside Jerusalem turned on each other. In their madness, they burned the city's grain reserves, guaranteeing mass starvation for everyone. They were, as he puts it, basically working for the Romans, fulfilling this prophecy of a broken brotherhood to their own destruction.
Okay, so you've rejected the good shepherd, the one who actually cares. What comes next? What kind of leader fills that void? Well, the prophecy gives a pretty grim answer, a foolish one.
And really, this is the critical question the prophecy is asking. When a nation pushes away a leader who offers protection and unity, what rushes in to take their place? The answer, as we're about to see, is not pretty.
So God commands the prophet to act out the part of this new leader. And this foolish shepherd is the polar opposite of a caretaker. He doesn't look for the lost, he doesn't heal the wounded. Instead, he consumes the strong for his own gain. He becomes a predator to his own flock. I mean, this is the very definition of corrupt leadership, right? It's a leadership that sees people not as a sacred trust to be protected, but as a resource to be exploited. It is self-serving, it's destructive, and ultimately it's an idle shepherd, meaning it's a false, worthless substitute for the real thing.
And once again, this played out perfectly, tragically, with the leaders of the Jewish-Roman War. Driven by fanaticism, they dragged their people into a completely suicidal war with Rome. And then they turned on their own citizens, hoarding food, murdering rivals, and basically guaranteeing the city's destruction. They became the very foolish shepherds that Zechariah had warned about centuries earlier.
But the prophecy isn't done yet. It doesn't just stop with the rise of this awful leader. It concludes with one final chilling verse that pronounces God's specific judgment upon him.
Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock. The judgment is so precise, a sword against his arm and his right eye. Now, this isn't just a random curse. It's a deeply symbolic punishment.
Let's unpack this. The arm, that represents a leader's strength, their power to act, to protect. The right eye represents their vision, their wisdom to guide. So the curse means their own foolishness would strip them of their power and blind their judgment, leaving them and their people totally helpless at the exact moment they needed strength and vision the most.
And so we're left with this final, haunting warning echoing from the text. Zechariah 11 serves as a stark reminder of the terrible consequences that unfold when a people reject their true shepherd, break their covenants, and end up falling under the sway of leaders who devour rather than defend. It's a sobering prophecy of judgment that found its tragic fulfillment in the smoldering ruins of history.